So I had a video request a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, about how can I tell the difference if I'm a 4 or a 5 on the Enneagram. So I've been mulling over it, and I'm gonna come and try and answer that question in a way that's hopefully easy to understand. Um, it's a pretty common mistype. If you're a 4, sometimes you may wonder if you're a 5 and vice versa, especially if you're a 4 with a 5 wing or a 5 with a 4 wing. So the confusion is pretty common. So I'm just going to try and pick those apart. I would say, excuse me, first of all, if you are a 4, the things that interest you will probably in some way engage your ability to self-express. It will engage you on some kind of an emotional level. If you're 5, the things that interest you will more than likely engage your intellect and your ability to analyze and to put information together in a system. Okay? If you are a 4, you are an emotionally expressive person. It is important to you that other people know how you feel. If you are a 5, you are an emotionally protective person. It is important for you to make sure that other people don't have access to your emotions, especially just to drain the energy out of you. You don't want people to kind of leech on and just suck energy out of you. 4s want people to engage them emotionally. They want to know that they have an emotional effect on other people. 5s want to make sure that you don't have an emotional effect on them, right? 4s are very personally subjective in a lot of the things that, they look at. They always apply the emotional perspective to something. 5s are very objective, very objective. And I mean, even if you wanted to take these to their extremes to look at like what a flaw would be for each of these, a 4 that's being way too subjective is ignoring facts and is ignoring realities that they need to pay attention to simply because those realities and those facts don't fit with what emotionally makes them feel good. So they just don't see them. It's not healthy. It's bad news, okay? A 5 is very objective, right? So, and on the one hand, it's really, really good because when you have that emotional detachment, you can see reality for what it is. But another example of that is, like to a negative side, is when you are so incredibly objective that you forget that emotions do play an important part in a healthy world perspective, right? I have an example that I want to give you, but I think about it and I feel like I may offend somebody. I've got a really good example of like an unhealthy 5 being like way too intellectual and absolutely no emotion, but I'm not going to do it because I don't want to be offensive to anybody. So never mind. We're going to let that one go. My phone. I wish people would just leave me alone. Okay. 4s are very reactive to things. 4s have emotions, and they have emotions before they think about those emotions, and so they tend to overreact. When you're a 4, a lot of your emotions tend to be just way over the top. This is one of the reasons why they are sometimes called like drama queens, for example. You'll find the phrase drama queen, thrown around when people are talking about Enneagram type 4, because they tend to just have all of their emotional reactions or exaggerated emotional reactions. My dad was a really good example. I feel safe using him as an example because he's dead now, so every emotion that he had had to be an intense emotion. He couldn't just take something in for how it was. It had to really affect him. It just made him feel good to be affected by things emotionally. So just as an example, like if he was really just resentful about something, you know, if he was feeling really bitter about something, he would harp on that. I'm talking about for years. He would brood about it every time he got the chance to bring it up in a conversation. He would bring it up. You weren't going to get to live down what you did, because he was going to remind you at every turn, and anybody else he could remind at any opportunity that he got, of what you did, how it affected him, how it, you know, ruined his life, or whatever it was, however it was that he would portray that, which is a really unhealthy, reactive 4 thing to do. He couldn't just experience hurt and bitterness. He had to multiply that times 10 and drag it out for as long as he could to get that drama going, because that's really kind of what he feeds off of. That was his fuel, is a 4. That's an example. 5s do the opposite. They're not reactive towards life. They're very aloof, actually. 4s will see an opportunity that looks like it's emotionally charged, and they run towards it. And they want to throw fuel on the fire, because the bigger that fire gets, the more fun that they have. They love stirring it up. They love stirring the pot. 5s see an opportunity where there's, you know, like something that looks like it may become an emotionally reactive situation, and they are running the other way. They're like, I don't want to get dragged into this. I wasn't here. You didn't see me. Bye. You know, they, you know, 5s almost, if I was going to give you just a symbolic picture, you know, if life, you know, if 5s kind of live mentally in their own little house, and life is happening all outside of their house, and the emotional aspect of life is happening outside of that house. And it's like every now and again, 5s are going to come to the front door of their mind, and they're just going to open it, and they're going to peep out, and they're going to see what's going on. And if it's too much of the emotional part of life, then it's like, nope, and they shut the door and they go back inside, because that's where their comfort is. 4s are out there, and they're trying to get in the very center of it and get it to revolve around them. They'll try to orchestrate it. They'll try to make it bigger than it actually is. And they do it without even realizing that they're doing it. And likewise, 5s, I think, are also withdrawing from that without even realizing that they're doing it most of the time. So that's another example. Okay. Oh, how am I going to paint this picture? Okay. This one's a hard one to describe, so I'm trying to get some words. You know, when we're talking about the Enneagram, a lot of times, the way that I like to describe it is, you know, you'll learn that each Enneagram type kind of has this constant inner struggle. It's like this thread that runs throughout the duration of their life, and it's always that core issue that they go back to. It's always that core lie, that core pain, whatever it is, that just keeps rearing its ugly head. And so we always kind of have to come back to home base and deal with that core issue, whatever that is for your Enneagram type. For type 4, the core issue is pain. It almost always is specifically abandonment and or rejection, or if not those things, the fear of abandonment and or rejection, which causes pain. And so when you're a 4, very much on an unconscious level, I think that 4s have to do a lot of work to get to where this is conscious for them. But very much on an unconscious level, there is always just that pain that they carry around with them. I used to date this guy who was a 4 on the Enneagram. I dated a lot of 4s on the Enneagram. Like, I don't know. I think in my entire life, I've dated. I'm married now, but I think I dated maybe like 8 people, maybe 9. And I'm telling you, like, at least 4 of them were 4s, right? So, this one guy in particular, he was a 4 with a 5, an INFP for that matter, and he was just, like, you know those little, are Are they stuffed animals now, or bobbleheads, and it's like an animal, and it's got a little tiny body, and it's usually like a dog, and it's got this big giant head and these big huge like puppy dog eyes, but the rest of its little snout is really small, and it looks like it's got this like a little sad little face. They're really cute. Everyone's got them. They're like stuffed animals and bobbleheads and keychains and stickers now. It's a whole thing. Anyways, like, that was just him in a nutshell. I mean, he may as well have just worn that face everywhere that he went. He really about, damn near did. Every time that I was with him, it was just this feeling, and I'm an extroverted feeler, so I'm just sucking up the emotions in the room, okay? And every time that I was with him, it was just this sense of inadequacy. Like, he knew he was inadequate. And I don't even know if inadequate is the right word. Defective is probably a better word. If you're a 4, the word defective is probably really resonating with you. I don't think inadequate. Defective is the word. Inadequate is probably more of a 5 word. So inadequate if you're a 5, defective if you're a 4. That right there. If one of those words like really triggered you, or kind of, you don't even know why, but you just paid more attention to it than anything else, that could be an indicator. I don't recall any memories of him being just happy, just carefree. I never saw him carefree. There was always, every single moment of the day that we were with each other, there was some kind of concern. And it wasn't a global concern. It wasn't like child sex trafficking. It wasn't a concern for a friend, my friend has a drug problem and he just got kicked out of his house. It wasn't anything like that. It was always like, what if no one's ever gonna love me? I'm a really bad person. I'm not sure if God could love me. I'm not good enough for you. You could find someone else that's better than me. All of this stuff and it was just this weight that he carried with him all of the time about how he was just defective. He couldn't be like the rest of the world because he was this really defective person, and there was something wrong with him. And any time that something in life didn't go his way, it was always because he didn't deserve it. It was always a personal thing. He made it about him. Sometimes things in life happen because they happen. Life isn't about you. It doesn't revolve around you. But he was a 4, and so, I don't even, like, the things I could... Okay, so, he was on the soccer team, and the team lost that game, and it was because of him, because he screwed up, and he could have done a better job, and he didn't do a good job, and he doesn't deserve to be on that team, and he's just weighing the team down. He should quit the team. No one on that team likes him anyway. And it was kind of this very, like, Eeyore perspective, right? So that's just an example that I would give you about the pain. Okay, there's always this pain, whether it was consciously or... And this is what I'm saying to you. Even though he was vocalizing things like that, I promise you that if I had sat down with him and said, did you know that you are constantly just carrying around this burden of pain? Like, everything about you revolves around some kind of pain that you feel, how you're hurting either because of yourself or because of something that someone else has done to you. He wouldn't likely agree with that right away, I don't think. I don't know, maybe he would, because he was pretty self-perceptive. Or even if he agreed with it, he may say something like, well, yes, that's because that's how life really is. Because that's his perception. That's how he sees. He sees life through the pain that he feels. That's a type 4. All right, so 5s carry around a different issue. 5s carry around an inner sense of, like I said, inadequacy was a really good word. Emptiness might be a good word. I still think I like inadequacy better. I don't know, if you're a 5 and you're watching this, and if you want to chime in and just tell me which of those words you think resonates better for you, or if you even have a different word, I would really appreciate it. I would love to get that feedback. I would say right now, I may go back and forth just between inadequacy and emptiness. Uselessness might even be a better word. Incompetency could be another good word. When you're 5, and it's not easy, 4s, I think it's just easy to tell with 4s. I mean, they just wear it on their sleeve. You know what I mean? It's just easy to tell. 5s, it's harder to tell because they are so emotionally withdrawn and they're so emotionally aloof. It's not as readily available to you what that struggle is, what that emotional mood is for them inside. I think really for them, even most of the time, they're not very aware. So you kind of have to get to know a 5 a little bit. You've got to pay attention. You've got to observe for a little while before you know. But the 5s that I have known, and again, I've not known a large handful, 3 that I've been close enough with in my life to glean the information that I have. But it's really, really apparent that, you know, they struggle with those feelings of emptiness, inadequacy, incompetency, uselessness. I know that my best friend, who is a 5, she has vocalized, she's very, very introspective, very self-aware. She has vocalized to me before that she has had similar feelings like that. And I think sometimes when I observe her, one of the things that I just kind of pick up on with my extroverted feeling is I feel like sometimes I don't think she feels empty. She may correct me. Maybe she does. I don't pick up on it, but I pick up on sometimes I feel like maybe she feels inadequate. And I feel like she feels useless sometimes or incompetent. I can tell that she struggles with those feelings a lot. She's really, really good at knowing things. And she knows what she knows. She's damn good. She's really good. But I think that when it comes time for her to make real life applications out of those things, and I don't mean taking knowledge and giving an example. I mean, when it's time to say that I understand this, this, and this, and this, and this, and it's time for me to go make a life change with that information, I think that's where she struggles. And I think that's where her feelings of inadequacy and uselessness and incompetency come in. And who knows, emptiness may be a byproduct of that. I don't know. I'm just speculating at that point. But I would say I definitely see that in her. My uncle that I mentioned when I did my 5 videos, I did a 5 wing video and then a 5 video. I mentioned my uncle, who is a 5 with 6 INTP. I don't know if emptiness is how I would describe his feelings either, because I've never picked up on that. And again, I'm just giving you my perspective. I'm an INFJ, and I don't know if that helps or not. INFJs tend to be pretty good about seeing things about other people that they don't see themselves sometimes, so I'm just giving you my perspective as an INFJ. I don't know that I would say he feels empty, but he feels inadequate, but he feels socially inadequate. And actually, that's probably a really good distinction to make. You do need to understand that when we are talking about an intellectual arena, things that they know, ways of thought, ways to analyze logic and process information, 5s do not feel inadequate. They very much have the upper hand there, and they know that. But any time that you step outside of that arena and into anything that has to do with, you know, social skills, emotions, relationship building, anything at all like that, that's when their feelings of inadequacy come in, feelings of incompetency. I don't think even necessarily that he feels, well, I take that back. I could see how he might feel useless too. And you know, another thing that I think 5s struggle with that, I don't know, I don't think most of us realize. You know, I think if you're a 5, you know a lot of stuff. You know this really bizarre stuff, you know, sometimes. And I think part of the frustration is that you don't have anywhere really to apply that. So it's like you have this really great skill, you're really good at analyzing information, you're really good at putting new information into a schematic, but it's like, where in the real world is this useful? Where in the real world is someone going to have a job where I get to sit and memorize I don't know. Like, think of a weird thing. Like, just weird facts about, the Aboriginal peoples of Australia. Example. Um, I'll use the Enneagram as an example. If you're a 5 and the Enneagram is your thing, um, it's almost like you're really good at it, but where in the real world am I going to walk into a place and they're going to have a job where they're going to pay me to just sit in a room by myself, observe people, and just give feedback on what people's Enneagram types could be? You see what I'm saying? Where does that job exist? It doesn't. It probably never will, because we don't have any value for anything in the United States the way that we should. But, so there's that feeling. It's like, I'm a 5 and I know the complete history of, animated cartoons within the decade of the 1980s. Where is there a job where someone's going to say, I need someone who knows the complete history of animated cartoon series for the 1980s? I need that person right now. We're going to pay him at least $50,000 a year to just sit here and know stuff. It's almost like I think that 5s very much wish that they could just be this person, and you come in and you ask them a question and they dispense knowledge and then you leave. And they would like to get paid to do that. And the problem is there's no place in the world where, there are very few places, I should say. I'm sure that somewhere there are jobs where you're just paid to know stuff, but I don't know of any. But everything always has an applicable point to it, and that's where 5s are uncomfortable. And so I think that that's a really big struggle for them. And so when you're a 5, I can see how you would feel useless, because you have all of this stuff that you could use, that you could give, but the world that we live in, the culture that we live in now in the United States of America, doesn't have a place for that. We don't value that. You have to be able to perform with that and to generate money with that. Otherwise, it's useless, right? So they're very much kind of not made room for in our economical culture in the United States in that sense. And I think that can contribute a lot to their feelings of uselessness. So that's just another example. I know I told you guys about my ex-boyfriend who was a 5 with a 6 INTJ, and he very much, again, intellectually, he did not feel incompetent, didn't feel useless. He felt very superior in that respect. Very superior. But socially, he felt, you could tell that he felt really awkward. He just felt inadequate, although he would never ever say that at all. He tried to cover up for those feelings of social inadequacy by overplaying on what he knew. And so he was one of those people, he was one of those 5s that I was talking about earlier, how they tend to be a little too objective, and it just gets to where it's obnoxious and it's hurtful in some respects, because he would just interact with people based off of what he knew. If he couldn't have a relationship with you based off of intellectual knowledge, then he just didn't have a relationship with you. And so he was very, very impersonal, and he was very, very cold in that respect. You had to be able to not take things personally if you were going to have anything to do with him, because he didn't understand how to incorporate your emotions into his way of thought, because those emotions were so illogical to him. It's like, why? He really was just way too much on the objective side, which will happen when you're a 5 with a 6 versus a 5 with a 4 wing. But he was an NT as well, and they tend to be just like way, way up here. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, those are just some more examples of just kind of the inner issue that they're carrying. Trying to think if there's anything else really that I want to add. No. I feel like that's a pretty good starter list, just to give you some differences between type 4 and type 5. I wonder if I could give you some Good examples. Probably could, but I'd have to think about it again. Anyways, so those are just my thoughts and differences between type 4 and type 5. I hope that gave you at least a little bit of clarification. There's probably always more that we could come up with. I mean, the Enneagram is practically a bottomless tool, but just for the sake of time, I'll give you those pointers to start off with. Hopefully that will help to differentiate for you if you're asking yourself that question. Am I a 4 with a 5 wing or a 5 with a 4 wing, or am I just a 4 or a 5? So there you go. Thanks so much.